Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harping on Rugby. This is our weekly newsletter called the 80 Plus column. Now, just if you're new to Harping on Rugby, our main content each week is our wrap podcasts, which have analysis of the latest match for the Leinster or Ireland men's team. And all of that means the 80 Plus column is a sort of a weekly newsletter for taking a quick look at the rest of the rugby world just to see what's going on. Now, for this video, it's all about our feature known as the Front Five, which is a selection of five eye-catching, egg-chasing quotes and links from around the rugby media landscape. As you can see, I've got five headings lined up here, so let's just crack on with them. Starting with our first article, which comes from Sky Sports. And the headline reads, Connacht's Bundyaki and Leinster's James Ryan signed contract extensions to remain available for the national team. Now, of course, a lot has been made about Ireland's central contract system, which is our way of keeping who we consider to be the best players for the national team within Ireland without, so we can control their minutes, have them here, for marketing purposes as well, but, to make them happy to live and play their rugby here in Ireland as well for their provinces, not just the national team. And it's a system that's worked very well over the years. It's not perfect. It's never really going to be perfect just by its definition. It's not. It kind of goes against the natural kind of order of sports contracts and sports deals. Usually, with football, you're talking about deals with individual clubs, but when you've got the national union involved in the signing of a player who also must play for a province, it's never going to be straightforward. But anyway, these contracts have to be renewed. These contracts have to be decided. They can't give them to everybody. So some players are going to miss out. And of course, at the moment, there's a lot of talk about the disparity about how Leinster have so many and how the other provinces have so few. I mean, Bundyaki was literally the only Connacht player with one of these at the moment. Well, no, Mac Hansen as well, actually. But the point is that the vast majority of them are Leinster. And I suppose my pushback on that is like, it's not a case of, it can't be a case of, you can't automatically distribute them evenly. I mean, even if you try to stick to certain proportions, just because one player goes beyond their central contract and one becomes available doesn't mean that the next player to get one must be from that same province. You don't always know where your best players are going to be from. It's as simple as that. But there's a lot of people out there, we speak about them all the time, who try to push this narrative that Leinster are always getting favoritism, that everything is geared towards Leinster and that the other provinces are somehow left out. And of course, if there's a disparity in the numbers of the central contracts, it's going to help support that theory. I might say that I'd say that maybe that's more like confirmation bias. But that's the case there. But anyway, listen, the deals that have been announced this week, they were teased by the IRFU on social media. They say, oh, we're signing a new player. A couple of hours go by, everyone speculates who it is. It was Tyke Furlong, Andrew Porter, Bundyaki, and James Ryan. So that's three Leinster players and one Connacht player. So you can imagine what the reaction is going to be to that. But for me, for those four players in particular, it's great to hear that they've been signed. And I think they've all done really well over the years. They've earned the rights to this contract, and definitely don't begrudge them. And they've done great service for Ireland, and I wish them all the best down the line as well. So that's our first article on the Irish Central contracts. Okay, our second article is a very disturbing subject matter, but I still think it's important that we at least are aware of these stories. This is an article from evoke.ie, so it's not even a sports website, which is kind of the point. This is these kind of stories show how the sport of rugby is viewed from outside of the rugby bubble, and I think it's important that we're mindful of that as well, of how the game appears, and we don't just ignore these things. Now, this is we followed the story of Stuart Hogg quite a bit over recent weeks and months here at Harping on Rugby. We've been following the progress of his case, and it kind of came to a conclusion last week. But this one has kind of come up just to remind us that when it comes to stories that involve ill treatment of women in particular, that's not an isolated incident, and he's not the only one who has found himself in a situation similar to that. So this is a case that went on in France and concluded recently. and two Irish players in particular, Dennis Colson and Chris Farrell. There were three other rugby players as well from other nations, but those two are the ones that would interest Irish rugby. Chris Farrell has played for Ireland. They both played for Munster, I think, but at this stage, at the time of this incident, it was in they were playing for Grenoble in France, which is why it was in a French court. Now, I don't want to go into the details because that's not for a video like this, but there's a link there. As you can see, there's a link, a QR code to the article if you want to read it. There's details there about what the case was, details from both sides of the argument. My thing would be, I'm glad that it has seen court, that it has seen a day in court, and that it has been adjudicated. But I just wonder, the way we approach these is like, do we believe the accuser or do we believe the accused? To what stage do we tend to believe the accused because we somehow want them to still be playing rugby? I don't know. It's a weird perception. It's a weird area. My thing is that a lot of these stories tend to come from these particular stories tend to come from nights out having played rugby after rugby matches. And there's another case recently of French players in Argentina. Now, they were found not guilty in their case, but there's others where where players have been found guilty, and the pattern seems to be that a lot of players don't seem to know where the line is when it comes to going out and celebrating. When you're on tour or when you're away with these rugby teams, you are sort of still representing the union. You are still representing. You could say you're representing the sport. So while I agree that players do like to go out and should go out. I mean, I'm reading Johnny Sexton's book at the moment, and he talks about times when he was at the other end of the scale. The team would be out celebrating when he'd be tucked up in bed with a cup of cocoa. I would encourage all players to at least go out, but there is a line as a cross, and obviously when it comes to these horrible court cases and these horrible stories that you see laid out in an article like this. This is a case where they've not just gone over the line; they've gone way over the line, and it's and I don't want to sweep them under the carpet. So the article is there. Do read it if you're interested. This does still go on in the game, and maybe just hopefully it will serve as a lesson going forward to those who know where the line is, and stories like this don't happen again. You can just only hope that that's possible. So that's pretty much all I want to say about that. Okay, article number 3 now, and that is from Wales Online. This is headline reads, "Why Toby Booth's Ospreys reign ended so abruptly as exit plan went wrong." Now, we've also spoken a lot on this this front five about the ongoing situation in Welsh rugby, and it's pretty bleak. And there's not a whole lot of success stories. And if you had to pick one, the best one would probably be Toby Booth's reign at Ospreys. He's got them playing some incredible rugby at times. He's brought them some measure of success, relatively speaking, for the regions. At a time when things are pretty dire for the entire sport in that country. The headline, the quote I've chosen from this article reads, "The Ospreys were in disarray back in 2020 when Booth took over, but even with various hurdles and challenges, he's made them the team greater than the sum of their parts," and there's no doubt about that. But of course, before the season started, it was announced that he'd be leaving at the end of the season, and now, like not even halfway through the season yet, he's leaving with immediate effect. So I guess that's no great surprise, really, but it's just sad to see that that they just can't keep these kind of stories out of the headlines over in Wales. It's like every few weeks. First, it's the national team, then it's a region, then obviously the Six Nations, and there might be more problems going on with the WRU, more stories to come out. It's just an ongoing thing. Now, there's a side issue to this as well, because with Toby Booth now available and having done so well with so little at the Ospreys, there's a question to where does he go next? And we happen to know of a vacancy at Munster. So is that possible? Are they kind of I said last week, and I've said it often, that if somebody like Mike Prendergast wants the Munster job, they should just bloody give it to him and end the uncertainty. The last thing you want at any profession, especially a professional sports organization, is uncertainty over the top job, over who's in charge. The word temporary doesn't fit. I'm sure Ian Costello is doing a fine job, all things considered, but he's still the temporary head coach. They want that made permanent. So someone like Mike Prendergast, why not give it to him? And then the longer they don't give it to him, the more it looks like they don't want him. When you know that there's coaches like Felix Jones and now Toby Booth, and now I've heard Stu Lancaster could be interested as well. So that would be interesting. Um, so, but they need some kind of finality. So, from an Irish aspect, this story is interesting. It might force their hand and widen their options in who they choose. I think Booth would be a great appointment, but there's other options out there as well. And I just think the point is it's important for them to make a decision quickly. Okay, so that's my point there. Maybe they will have done by the time this article gets put out there, but we'll see. So that's my third article this week about Toby Booth. Now, article number 4 comes from the Irish Times. It's Gerald Maher, and it's from the ongoing problems in the RFU with clubs there. And the headline reads, English Premiership rugby clubs teetering on the edge, report warns. This is more fallout from the way that the Premiership as a competition has shrunk over the years. They lost Worcester, they lost Wasps, they lost London Irish. And of course, those clubs folded because they were unable to pay their debts, and obviously those debts are still to be paid. So that is still linked to the rugby football union as well. So that's kind of ongoing. And as the quote I've chosen here, that those clubs aren't the last ones that could possibly fold. And the quote I've chosen: there are fears over the remaining 10 clubs, with Newcastle and Exeter recently making moves to seek investment. They were always kind of rumored as the next clubs on the block. And it's by no means certain. And surely when they're 10 clubs now, that's the bare minimum that they can have. They can't afford to lose anymore. But with talk of there's still financial problems there. They are really, really in dire trouble at the moment. And it's hard to put a brave face on that. Now you see clubs like Northampton doing well on the pitch, which is good for the Premiership, but the overall attitudes, you're talking about people's jobs and all sorts. Their local rugby clubs that they've been going to, they've been holding season tickets for years, all that kind of stuff. You just hope they can just come to a long-term possible solution to the problem. It just doesn't seem forthcoming, and for one of the biggest rugby competitions in the world, it's just not looking good. So I hope they sort something soon. Okay, so that brings us to our fifth and final article. And, for all my talk about Welsh rugby, all my talk about the Premiership, this is sort of to do with the URC, but it's more Italian rugby, really. This article is from Rugby 365, and the headline reads, New RC side to replace Zebra next season. Now, this has been talked about quite a bit over the years. The feasibility of Italian rugby being able to hold on to 2 clubs. I mean, since they started, I think it was 2010, 2011, when they formed a second team, Aroni, and then Aroni became Zebra. Zebra kept going for a good few years, but they've never really they've gotten a few shock results along the way. A lot of Leinster fans remember a infamous 3-0 win for us over in Parma. It's not good that they're perennially at the bottom of the league. It's not good for morale there. It's obviously local fans won't be that interested for a team that keeps losing. So you have to feel that eventually something's going to give. Now, this article suggests that that they're going to make a decision on the future soon, and if Zebra ceases to exist, you think there would be a possibility of maybe Italy should just go with the one team, that Benetton is the only team that can sustain itself, but there will be a set to replace it. Now, of course, the league kind of has this need. The URC has been succeeding well as a competition, but part of that kind of depends on the sort of symmetrical nature of 16 clubs and 4 Irish, 4 Welsh, 4 South African, and then 2 Scottish and 2 Italian. Now, sport doesn't always work like that easily and that perfectly. But so I hope they're not just forcing a second Italian team in there just for the sake of numbers, but we'll see what they do. And apparently this is ongoing, and that's That's our fifth article this week. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. If you look at the rest of our 80 plus column, I'm including an article. It was kind of free content supplied by the URC to the media about, it's an interview with Martin Anyayi, who's the head of URC. He's been the head of the entity for about 10 years. So that's going back to the Pro 14 days. And when the South African clubs came in, became the URC. He's overseen the competition since then. So it'll be interesting to get his take on the past 10 years. And so there's an article there. So I'll include that in the 80 plus column. But that's our fifth article for this week. And that completes this week's Front Five. Remember, we do a lot of other regular features on that 80 plus column. You'll get all the Front Five actual links, of course. Plus, there's the Leinster injury update. I pick a possible Leinster 23 for Saturday's match at the Aviva. There's that article about the interview with the URC chief, Martin Anyayi, like I said. There's our Troll Patrol feature, plus updates on all the other major rugby tournaments. You can get it all by heading over to our website at harpinonrugby.blog. Now, next up here at Harpin Manor, we'll turn our attention to the visit of Connacht to the Aviva Stadium. So please be sure to subscribe to our channel, as well as our other social media platforms. You can find those at linktree/harpinonrugby. Until next time, stay safe, everyone. Slán.